Tonight is all about puberty. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Mostly the stuff that made most of us a little nervous, shall we say. Lots and lots and lots of good stuff. And for those of you who aren't knowing what's coming, this is it. All this stuff here. Okay. So these are all the fun and exciting things that are coming up. How many people here remember when they started puberty? Okay. Oh, see, it was much more traumatic for me. I remember it. How many people remember someone talking to them about puberty? Oh, nobody? Yeah? Okay. So how many people remember hearing about it at school? So a few more hands. Not so many for the home front, though, from the looks of it. Okay. Now, I noticed... Yeah, life's an adventure. I noticed we have a few dads in the audience, significantly outnumbered. So kudos that you're here, because it is a little more challenging. But as we go along, you're going to appreciate there are definitely things that apply for you in the room. How many of the gentlemen that are here, do you remember getting puberty stuff in school? Yeah. Do you? No, you're probably the same generation as my husband, because what he remembers is the boys got sent out to play broom ball. And the girls went to the library. The boys got nothing, absolutely nothing. And the girls got the book, you know, and yeah, remember the book? With strict instructions not to share, which guaranteed every boy in the school had one of those books in his hand before they left the school ground that day. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what was so exciting. They were half Kotex ads. I'm not sure what was supposed to be the big magical thing in there that they weren't supposed to know about. And I grew up in a household of all women, so one thing my dad really knew about was Kotex. He spent a lot of time going to the drugstore. So we're gonna talk about a lot of these things. Some of them will look familiar. Some of them you will vividly remember as being a part. And if you don't remember puberty, I'm guessing by the end of tonight, there will be momentary, oh my, I remember that, going on, which I'm hoping for. So a lot of people tend to not think about puberty as being related to sex, but sexuality is related to everything, and puberty is where it's all starting. So the reality is, everybody goes through puberty. It doesn't matter who you are, what you're planning on doing, what your orientation is, what your religion is, what your economics are. Everybody's going through puberty. It is the great common denominator. So we are taking an approach to this from a sexuality perspective, obviously. These are all the things that we're going to be talking about in and out throughout the evening. They're going to run in and out between it. How our bodies work, what are we male or female, and what that means to us, about the people we love, our values, the relationships we have, all the roles that we play. This is probably very familiar to most of you. If you've had little people, they love the role playing, they love the dressing up. It's coming, but it's coming in a bigger way. It's coming in a goth, in a heavily pierced and tattooed, and oh, I love the pink hair, by the way, and you're gonna be fine. But it's coming. Those things are coming in a different way. So remember this? And you could do whatever you wanted with them. You could dress them what you wanted, and you could put them to bed, and they ate what you gave them, and that's going away. Okay, if it hasn't gone away really fast for you, it's going away in a big hurry. The reality is, reason we are talking about sexuality is because you're born a sexual being. That hasn't changed. We live in a world that is very sexualized, and so what I'd like you to do tonight is try to take off your adult glasses. We tend to, as we get to be adults, think about sexuality in terms of what it means as an adult, what the world presents to us, the media, the internet, what we watch and listen to on television and on the radio. So what we want to go back to is what sexuality was when we were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So for some of us, it was nothing. It hadn't even showed up yet. And when it did, it was a big rude shock. So we're going to try to soften the blow for the next generation a little bit. Part of the reason it's important that we consider this from the very beginning, and some of you are already doing some of this, is because children are born curious. They are going to want to know how their bodies work. It wasn't unusual in my generation for all the body parts to be named except below the belly button and above the knees. So it was like, oh, cute fingers, cute toes, yeah, whatever. And just not even go there because we weren't comfortable and we didn't have a lot of role models. My mother has yet to call a vagina by that name, or a vulva, which is the real name. We will talk about that as we go today. The other thing why it's important to talk about this is because this is how your children learn resiliency and coping. By understanding what they're going through, their experiences, their feelings, all of this is what's leading them into healthy adult relationships. The other big factor, of course, is knowledge protects them. So in this area, we're talking about sexual abuse. We're not going to be delving into that topic tonight. Our focus is puberty, and everybody, we're only here for a certain period of time. But rest assured that the more information you give your child, the more tools, skills, and language you give them, the better you protect them from this area. So this is a building block for that. So, who is the best person to talk? You are. I know sometimes we don't feel like it, because, and when they hit teens, you will feel like all of a sudden you've just gotten incredibly stupid. How many people here have teenagers already? Yeah, okay, so our IQs have dramatically dropped in the last few years. That's what happens. The good news is mine's starting to come back up again. We're hitting 20, so it's coming back up. But the reality is your child actually does want to get this information from you, believe it or not. Anytime we do any research, any surveys that have been done, and it's not just in the Sioux or in Algoma or in Ontario or in Canada, it's across the world, it always comes back the same information. They want to get this information from parents. They don't always enjoy it that much, but they want to get that information from parents. And I mean, the reality is there's a lot of concerns. Parents are often concerned about things like, well, what if I don't know enough to answer their questions? You will never know enough to answer their questions. I've been teaching sexuality for 20 years and I still get stumped every day by somebody asks me something and I'm like, oh, okay, gonna have to look that one up. And that's all right, because what you reinforce for your kids when you acknowledge you don't know something is that it's okay not to know something. It's okay to have to find out, because when they hit the teen years, you're gonna discover that, if you haven't already, that it becomes very difficult for them to ask questions they feel like they're supposed to already know. So right now is your perfect window of opportunity, if you haven't already been role modeling that aspect, for that to come up. The other question I'm often asked by parents is, well, I'm a single parent and my child that I need to talk to is a different sex. Does that make a difference? For the most part, no. The reality is 90% of the time, women are the sex educators for their whole family, regardless of what type of family you have. 2 parents, 3 parents, 8 parents, no parents, it doesn't matter. It's usually the women who are talking about sexuality to the kids and to their partners. And for boys and girls, typically it doesn't matter until around 13 or 14. And then around that age, they tend to want to get some information from an adult of the same sex, because they're looking for information about your experience. They're looking for a little bit of role modeling. They have questions about, you know, did this happen to you? You know, no matter how much I know about sexuality, I cannot empathize with my son about penis development. I don't have one, I don't have that equipment, you know, it's over to you, to dad or whoever. And it doesn't have to be a parent who talks. As long as it's a responsible, caring adult who has good information, they can share that. So whether it's a cousin, a brother, a big sister, a friend, whatever, it doesn't matter. And a lot of parents do get concerned about that. The reality is boys do want to hear about erections and wet dreams from another guy, more than from mom, but they can live with mom, okay? Girls really prefer to hear about periods and getting bras from somebody besides dad, but if dad's cool about the whole thing, they can probably live with it. So don't let that make you nervous. The biggest thing you can do is role model. How you talk about this topic is going to set them up for how they're going to talk about the topic. Personally, I think most of this stuff is really funny, and I encourage you to use your sense of humor. Not to laugh at them, but to encourage them to understand this is a part of life and there's going to be awkward and silly and goofy. I love 9 and 10-year-olds because they get a birthday present called the Goofies, and that is like my favorite time. And because they're just so unself-conscious about everything right about then, and they're just willing to just lay it all out there and be extra goofy. And it's a good time to be able to share that sense of humor that you have with them about some of this stuff that sometimes feels kind of weird and icky and freaky, and you know. And if you're not sure how that feels, for any of you, if you're hitting your 40s and you're women, you know how you get the weird freaky hairs all of a sudden showing up in places? Yeah. Puberty, think. There you go. That's the feeling that you have for like 10 years during puberty. Okay? Gentlemen, yours is the hair in the ears. It's like, where did this, you know, I don't get it. Why is this here now? So, why are you the best person? Really simple reasons. You know your child best. You know, you can tell from how they talk to you what kind of mood they're in, from what direction their eyes are rolling, up or back, and if they haven't started, they're going to. And a lot of this is going to happen. Okay. You just ignore it, because if not, you'll go crazy. So you know their personality. You know if they're an asker. 1 out of 4 children is a non-asker. You know if you have that child. The one that you have to pull every bit of information out of them, like you're mining for gold. How was school today? Fine. What did you do today? Nothing. What was your favorite thing? Lunch. You know, like, and yet you'll talk to, you know, a neighbor or someone at the school, and they'll be like, oh, they went and they did this and they went here. And you're like, my kid had lunch. That's, as far as I know, that's what my child did today. So if that's your child, they're probably not the one who's coming up to you and going, what do you think? Is this pubic hair? They're not that kid, okay? So you know your child, and you're going to know that there's going to be some things you're going to have to do to try to encourage them to have conversations and talk with you. It also works if you have more than one child, because you may have an asker and a non-asker. The advantage of the non-asker with the asker, is that right? Yeah, asker, non-asker? It sounds somehow weird now. The child who asks questions, the non-asker's listening. So the only thing you have to be careful of is if you do get the precocious younger siblings coming up, because they got all the information but they don't know what to do with it, right? Except share with the neighbors, stuff like that. So you just have to be a little bit careful in what they're listening in on. Another really big plus is you're around. And at this point in time, this is it, because I can tell you right now, the only reason I know I have children in the house is because there's no food, no gas, no money, and a lot of laundry, right? That's, sometimes my husband and I look at each other and go, do you know where anybody is? Like, well, there's a shoe there and it's still warm, so there might be somebody here and there's no vehicles. Like, that's kind of our life. So right now you're around, and you're available at times when they may want to talk. The reality is they're going to set the pace for that conversation. You can strategically encourage, and we'll talk about some of those strategies, but you're the one who's around, and you can make the most of that time when they do want to talk. You can start early. If you haven't started yet, then start today. Start tomorrow. If you've already started, kudos, because really these are all building blocks to healthy relationships. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all raising, hopefully, healthy, happy adults who are going to have healthy, happy relationships. This all starts from the minute they pop out and join us. But sometimes it's hard. There's so much other things going on. Sometimes it's hard to think about this. The good news is you've already started it. If you've potty trained, and I'm guessing if you have children 8 to 12, you have. Okay, would be good. For those of you who are struggling, they won't go to college with toileting issues, so you're all right. If you've talked about being a boy or a girl, if you've had any conversation about bodies, parts, bath time, if you've had kids taking baths of the different sexes, there's a lot of information and education that goes on, and you don't even really think about it. It's just, you know, no, do not play with your brother's penis. Whack. You know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, oh, and you really can't start too early, because they start that early. They have, I say that because, okay, I'll tell you my story. My children will kill me one day. They're going to see this too. Oh, geez, I'm in trouble. As I said, I've been doing this for a long, long time. My 2 little ones were having a bath. My son was 4, my daughter was 2, and he had just started swimming lessons. Bath time in my house was my husband's responsibility, because he worked long hours, and this was like my 20 minutes with heaven with the door shut. That was, you know, I'd go in the bedroom and I could hear them laughing, and I'd even like folding laundry without a child on you was a treat at that point. So I hear him one day, and I can tell he's trying not to laugh, and I don't know what's the matter, but he's calling me. So I go around the corner, and he's pointing at the bathtub. So I look down, and there's my son, and he's doing the back float which he had just learned in swimming lessons. And there's my daughter sitting next to him holding his penis. And my husband, he looks at me like this, and I'm going, tell her not to. You know? Because at that point, I'm bound and determined it's not going to be me who does all this education. I'm thinking, you need to step up here, buddy. So he looks at me, he goes, I did. So I'm like, okay, so okay, sex educator coming in. So I'm like, so I don't go for her, she's 2, I go for him. And I'm like, Jamie. He sticks his ear out of the water. I go, don't let your sister do that. He goes, it's okay, Mom, I'm not using it right now. My husband has left the room, and I can hear him. He's convulsing with laughter in the other room. So, you know, that didn't work out all that well. So at that point, it was like, okay, time to wash hair. You know, distraction works beautifully. So, you know, so you make mistakes, and you have to just kind of go with it, because everybody does that. But the earlier you start, the better, because it just makes, they still, to this day, they know all these stories, and that sometimes that'll come up, and other people will be like, you people talk about anything. Yes, we do. But their memories are that it's okay to talk about this stuff. And that's what's really important. Also, you're the one who can present this because you care about them. No matter how factual or wonderful an educator is, they do not care about your child the same way you do. So what you give them, the information you share, is more meaningful to them. You also are the one who can impart your family values. You're the ones who can add in the things that are important to you. I do not believe in valueless education, health education or sex education. I think it's important that we give our children values about all kinds of things, whether it's my body is mine and I need to respect it, and other people, whatever those values might be. But I think it's important that we have that opportunity. Also, if I could give the gift to everybody of self-esteem, that would be the gift I would package up. Part of my job is working in a sexual health clinic, and I work primarily with youth 14 and up, as well as a lot of education and things in the schools. And I can tell you that the single thing that I see most youth struggling with is feeling good about themselves and being able to fill up their own self-esteem. And so they're looking for someone else to fill it up, and most of them are looking for it in all the wrong places. So the more we can do this for our youth, and it starts at a very young age. And of course, the other thing that I always encourage is to use your sense of humor, because you normalize what you're talking about. You take away the scary. There's enough real scary out there. Your body should not be scary. What your body's doing, what you might do with your body should not be scary. I know it's scary to some of you as parents right now, but it shouldn't be scary to us as individuals.